Hi guys, Sean here from digiDirect. Today we're going to be taking a look at Sony's newest release, and that's the RX100 VI. So this has just been announced, it'll be out shortly. We've been lucky enough to get our hands on one in advance. So the RX100 lineup is Sony's long-running series of high-end compacts. They've been very, very popular over the years, and they're notable for their large image sensors and high picture quality considering their very small size. So obviously our RX100 VI has got a bunch of updates in it. We're going to discuss all of those. Notably, it has a much expanded zoom range. We're going to start though with a look at the physical design of the camera. So the whole RX100 line has looked pretty much the same the whole way through. This one's no different. This looks very similar to the old versions, but there are a few changes. They've increased the articulation on the LCD screen at the back. You can flip it up and around for selfies like in previous models, but you can also tilt it quite a bit further down. This is very handy if you're shooting food, shooting at your table, or high-angle shots. You can get a bit more articulation out of that, so that's nice. The viewfinder has also been slightly adjusted, so it only takes one push to pop it up or retract it. On older models, you also had to kind of pull out a tab on the viewfinder, giving it an extra step in between. Sounds like not a big deal, but it actually does make it quite a lot faster to hop in and out of the viewfinder, so that's great. Sony has finally added touch focus and touch shutter control on this model, something that's been really sorely missing in the previous versions. They work very well. They allow you to easily change focus or take a photo off the back screen. It's going to be helpful for people who are used to shooting on their smartphone. Camera also has Wi-Fi and NFC as well as Bluetooth low energy, and the dimensions is almost identical to the older models. It is very, very slightly wider, although the difference is barely noticeable. It's only 2 grams heavier than the older version, which is actually pretty impressive considering the amount of extra glass that they've put in this to facilitate that expanded zoom range, which we're going to talk about now. So previous RX100 models had a zoom range of 24 to 70 mil. This one has a zoom of 24 to 200 millimeter. That's a very big increase. On the previous model, that's about a 3.5 times zoom range. That's about an 8 times zoom range now on this one. I think that's really, really good. When people are looking for compact cameras like this, they're often looking for a very versatile camera because they want to be able to put down their big cameras and just carry around a little compact that kind of does a little bit of everything. And having an expanded zoom range goes a long way to making a camera like this be a lot more flexible and versatile. I think it allows it to be used in a lot more broader capabilities, competing better against other compacts that tend to have longer zoom ranges. It's good makes it better for travel and everyday photography and so on. So I think it's very, very good. There are some downsides of this longer zoom range though, notably is the aperture. So on previous versions, they had very fast aperture lenses, 1.8 to 2.8. This one, it is now 2.8 to 4.5. So a marked decrease in the aperture here on this lens, which means it's going to be able to gather less light than the previous models, which means it's going to be not as effective in lower light situations, and also you're not going to get as much shallow depth of field. You still can get shallow depth of field, and I still think it performs pretty well in low light, but it's not going to be quite as well as the older models were on this one. Overall, I think the expanded zoom range is going to be more of a plus for more people than the reduced aperture is going to be a negative. So I think it's a net positive, but definitely something to be aware of. High image quality is another staple of the RX100 lineup, and the VI is not much change from the V here. That is to say, the image quality is excellent. It has a 20 megapixel sensor in here, just like the V, so a lot of resolution. You've also got 4 stops of image stabilization inside the camera. Basically, if you're looking for the best image quality in a compact camera, the RX100 VI is definitely among the best options on the market. Another commonality of the RX100 lineup has been very high performance autofocus features, and we see some improvements on the VI in this area. So it has 315 phase detect autofocus points that cover 65% of the frame. That's the same as in the V, but there's some speed improvements on the VI. The V could focus at up to 0.05 seconds. The RX100 VI almost doubles this and now can autofocus at 0.03 seconds. It also has some improvements to Sony's eye autofocus feature. That's something that's been fairly popular recently, where it'll track just your subject's eye, not just their face, which is very handy for portrait shooting. They've doubled the speed of the eye autofocus in the VI over the V, claiming that now puts it in the same realm as the performance on the eye autofocus on the A9, which is Sony's flagship camera. So that's pretty impressive. The RX100 VI can also shoot at up to 24 frames per second with a buffer of 233 JPEG. So check it out. Can shoot all day, basically. Frankly, that's pretty ridiculous. It's much more than you'll probably ever need, but if you're ever shooting any kind of action or sports or movement, you can basically shoot to your heart's content and be pretty confident that you're going to get the shot. The RX100 Mark VI can shoot 4K at up to 30 frames per second, although there is a 5-minute record limit when you're shooting in 4K. You don't have that limit when you're shooting in 1080, where it can shoot at up to 120 frames per second, so you can get some pretty slow motion stuff still in full HD. It also retains Sony's high frame rate feature from the previous models, which lets you shoot it up to 1,000 frames per second, which is super slow. You obviously see more image degradation the faster you shoot, so you have to kind of trade off between that, but you can shoot super slow if you want to. We also gain S-Log 3 picture profile in the Mark VI here. The Mark V only had S-Log 2. So S-Log 3 is a picture profile that's very flat, low contrast, good for color grading. And it also gains HLG or hybrid log gamma picture profile, which is for displaying on HDR displays. So here I'm using the new Accessory hand grip that Sony's releasing along with the RX100 Mark VI. It's kind of aimed to make the camera more vlogger friendly. It's like a little mini tripod / extension grip. Not really an extension, but I can hold the camera at arm's length here. I have it plugged into the camera, and I can even control zoom settings, start and stop recording, so I can zoom in on my face if I want to, but let's keep it zoomed out. I can take photos with it as well, so it's fairly handy. One thing about vlogging though, it does lose the built-in 3-stop ND filter that the Mark V had. So when you're in bright shooting conditions, it's a little bit harder to keep that 1/50th shutter speed. It's pretty overcast today, and I'm still at f-stop of 7.1. So on a bright sunny day, it'll be even harder to maintain that shutter speed without that ND filter. Also, no mic input on this camera, still like all the other old versions. So I'm just using the built-in mics. But this little grip here is pretty handy. So the last thing to consider here is the price. Like most newer models of cameras, the Mark VI does have a price increase over the older models. It's now sitting around $1,600 Australian, which is not cheap for a compact camera. However, it is hands down the best performing compact camera on the market. We've got autofocus improvements here that make this on par with a lot of the best larger sensor cameras on the market. We see some nice ergonomic improvements like the touch focus and touch shutter, the increased articulation on the LCD screen, and the viewfinder pop-up improvements, and that very important expansion of the zoom range that makes it a lot more versatile. So if you're looking for the highest image quality, the highest performance features, and now some extra versatility in a compact camera, the RX100 Mark VI definitely is something that you should be considering. It'll be out in the next couple weeks. You can pre-order it on our website at www.digidirect.com.au, or you can do so in one of our stores, or if it's already out by the time you're watching this video, come into one of our stores, you can try it out. We've got stores in the Sydney CBD, Bondi Junction, Miranda, Chatswood, the Brisbane and Melbourne CBD, and Cannington, which is just outside the Perth CBD. Thanks guys, take care.